Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavatam ki jai. Go Premanande. So, Tarka Prabhu took the words right out of my mouth. Good morning, dear Prabhus. We are reading from Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 17, Mother Parvati curses Chitraketu 10. And here we go. Samsara Chakra Etasmin Jantur Agyana Mohitaha Ramya. Oh, I'm supposed to say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Now we're reading from 6:17:18. Samsara Chakra Etasmin Jantur Agyana Mohitaha Ramyan Sukham Cha Dukam Cha Punkte Sarvatra Sarvada. Samsara Chakra Etasmin Jantur Agyana Mohitaha Ramyan Sukham Cha Dukam Cha Punkte Sarvatra Sarvada. Samsara Chakra Etasmin Jantur Agyana Mohitaha Ramyan Sukham Cha Dukam Cha Punkte Sarvatra Sarvada. Alrighty, who wants to give it a shot?
Samsara Chakra Etasmin Jantur Agyana Mohitaha Brahmyan Sukham Cha Dukham Cha Punkte Sarvatra Sarvada.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Okay. Samsara Chakra, in the wheel of material existence. Etasmin, this. Chantu, the living entity. Agyana mohitaha, being bewildered by ignorance. Pramyan, wandering. Sukham, happiness. Cha, and. Tukam, distress. Cha, also. Punkte, he undergoes. Sarvatra, everywhere. Sarvada, always. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: deluded by ignorance, the living entity wanders in the forest of this material world, enjoying the happiness and distress resulting from his past deeds. Everywhere and at all times, neither you nor I am to be blamed for this incident. Purport. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 3:27, Prakrite Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvashaha Ahankara Vimudhatma Kartaham Iti Manyate. The bewildered soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by nature. End quote. Actually, a conditioned soul is completely under the control of material nature, wandering here and there, always and everywhere. He is subjected to the results of his past deeds. This is carried out by the laws of nature, but one foolishly thinks himself the doer, which in fact he is not. To get free from the karma chalk wheel of the results of consciousness, that is the only remedy. Sarvatarman Pritya. Mam ekam sharanam praja. Translation. Again, deluded by ignorance, the living entity wanders in the forest of this material world, enjoying the happiness and distress resulting from his past deeds everywhere and at all times. Therefore, my dear mother, neither you nor I am to be blamed for this incident. Om Jnanatimanandasya Gananjana Shalaka Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. So I'm just so happy. I was going to say good morning for the third time. I'm just so happy to see everyone and have this opportunity. What is there better to do in life than speak about Krishna? Of course, the materially conditioned senses will think of a long list, but really, when you get down to it, when you get into it, there's really nothing more satisfying than speaking about Krishna specifically in the association of devotees. So, I think everyone has pretty much given a sufficient recap in their classes about what's going on in this pastime and all the different angles of looking at this situation between Mother Parvati and Chitraketu. I think I was just listening to another lecture by Devamirta Swami, and he was bringing up even more points. So I've been amazed listening at Gita Nagari about this pastime, just how many takes there can be on this one pastime. So Surapal Prabhu was giving a whole different take. It was really nectar. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're just churning this and churning this. So it's like the Ajamil pastime too. We just had so many different angles, ways to look at it. So it's really nice when you bring together so many devotees of different backgrounds and experiences and trainings and for different countries, practicing for varying lengths of time. So anyway. So today I wanted to speak about ID 27, which I can read the verse and purport for that as well. And I was mainly going to focus on, I was just thinking about our aspirations. So material aspirations versus spiritual aspirations, as well as, the point that Prabhupada makes in today's purport, as well as Bhagavad Gita 327 about changing bodies. And that goes hand in hand with our aspirations. Even though we might not remember or it doesn't always feel like it, the two are inextricably linked. So this is Bhagavad Gita 327. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. Purport. Two persons, one in Krishna consciousness and the other in material consciousness, working on the same level, may appear to be working on the same platform, but there is a wide gulf of difference in their respective positions. The person in material consciousness is convinced by false ego that he is the doer of everything. He does not know that the mechanism of the body is produced by material nature, which works under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. The materialistic person has no knowledge that ultimately he is under the control of Krishna. The person in false ego takes all credit for doing everything independently. And that is the symptom of his nations. He does not know in subtle body nature, under his bodily and mental activities should be engaged in the service of Krishna, in Krishna consciousness. The ignorant man forgets that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Hrishikesha, or the master of the senses of the material body, for due to his long misuse of the senses and sense gratification, he is factually bewildered by the false ego, which makes him forget his eternal relationship with Krishna. So every sentence in this purport is multiple classes in and of itself. And I remember I had forgotten, but then I read this again and I remembered that we had to memorize this, or we were working on memorizing this verse, and we would memorize 3 points from each purport of the verse that we were memorizing. And I remember this wide gulf of difference because we would do actions with the things to remember because it helps you remember better. So it was like wide gulf, like somebody's golfing. And that's all I remember. I haven't memorized this verse or purport. So I guess I missed the point. I just remembered there's a wide gulf of difference and somebody golfing. So anywho, this purport made me realize the start of my class and made me think about that the human form of life is so rare actually. And yeah, if we don't use it properly, then we're just caught up in this cycle of using our senses for basically everything that the animals can get, and even better than the human form can. And then we don't use our, as Prabhupada would say, God-given intelligence to, inquire into the absolute atato brahma jigyas. So the body we will want, if we misuse this human form of life, then that body we will get. So I was thinking of a few examples of how if we don't take advantage of this human form of life, we will lose. And there were a lot that came to mind. Actually do things better than we do them, in terms of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So, for example, I was talking, we were traveling to the BMS retreat at Gita Nagari. And so we had a whole van full of, I guess you would call them new bhaktas, and I think one other woman. And they were speaking about video games. We were all talking about it and just, yeah, like what's the desire that video games are trying to fulfill. And of course there's different ones. Like I had brought up the point that, you know, Prabhupada said playing as the highest player. I was thinking, well, that one's obvious. A lot of it is like so many World of Warcraft be the ultimate controller and even enjoyer, and it's the height of envy to be able to simulate killing others. And Minecraft, because it makes me feel like I can just in control and like build, like you basically, I don't know that much about Minecraft, but you're basically building your own little like city or something like that, or like Sims, something along those lines. And then I was just thinking about it and I'm like, even just if we look at video games alone, there's so many animals that get to do those things in real life. Like if you want to just get the pleasure of a species that they don't need to buy a gun, they don't need to buy any kind of weapon, like a cheetah or a leopard or some kind of predator, like a hawk. If you want to play Call of Duty, one of those sniper games, you can just get the body of a hawk, and then just a prepackaged sniper organism. And then, if you want to play something like Minecraft, why not get the body of a beaver? And you can just build dams all day. So yeah, there's definitely better bodies to achieve a lot of the things that we take pleasure in the human form of life. And then, yeah, if you want to some people have maybe less motive ignorance kind of, yeah, the senses are drawn toward less motive ignorance activities. And maybe you want to be a top athlete like Usain Bolt, or there's other ones. Yeah, anyway, I don't have to go into it. If anybody's watched the Olympics or even read the news, then you've probably seen like some gymnast, Gabby something, and then all the American athletes. But basically, if you want to be a top athlete, why don't you just get the body of a cheetah? Or yeah, again, another bird or something like that. Or if you like rock climbing, I've been watching, there's so many squirrels around me, and I've just been watching, they just have so much fun climbing things. So if you want to rock climb and that's your highest aspiration in life, why not get the body of a squirrel? And then if the highest aspiration is, oh, I just want to have a comfortable home and, you know, my family and some really good food, why don't you just get the body of a pig and just, you know, like they can have multiple, I think they can have multiple kids at once or something like that. One of those, yeah, one of those animals that could just keep having children. And you could just like have you got your pen, you got your pig pen, you could just chill out in there and literally pig out all day. So that's your highest aspiration in the human form. Why not do that? Or even if you want to be an austere yogi, then why not take a body where you don't have to eat? So why don't you take the body of like reptiles and amphibians? They don't have to eat for prolonged periods of time. They can just have one meal and then be satisfied like that for so long. So yeah, there's a, I remembered in sixth grade, this memory will never leave me because it was, I think it was mildly traumatizing, but I had this teacher and we were doing standardized testing and he put on this movie about dolphins narrated by Robin Williams, or it's like a documentary. And it was saying that dolphins, one of the point Robin Williams was making is dolphins and humans are the only two species that mate for fun. And my teacher like got such a kick out of that. But if that's, you know, if that's your highest aspiration in life, then don't worry about, you know, having to go to work as a human being or, you know, pay the insurance or do that. Just get a dolphin body. So yeah. The last one is that I was hearing David Ramaswamy speak about too, that like again on this point that animals do it better even than humans do, is that he was talking about ants. Like an ant, even ant society is built better than the current human society. So basically the ants, they all have their different like varnas, so to speak. So you got the worker ants, you got the ants that just take care of the queen, you got yeah, the ants that like just build things, the ants that go out foraging like that. And then there's a group of ants that are just on standby. Like they're the flexible, I guess, so to speak, ants that whatever needs to be done, they can just go pop in and take up that role and do that. So, and then the queen ant, even after conception, she can decide what gender she wants her offspring to be. So anyway, he gave other examples too, but I was like, wow, look at that. Even the ants are doing just society even better than the human beings. So if that's your highest aspiration, you know, how can we organize society just in a more efficient way, not for spiritual realization, then just become an ant and you can be part of one of those societies. So anyway, these examples that I'm giving is if that's your highest aspiration. Now, of course, Krishna is so kind that even if one practicing spiritual life or a devotee has one of these aspirations, but they also want Krishna, then Krishna has created the process of karma yoga, where one can engage, you know, maybe one does want to be an austere yogi, but at the same time they want Krishna. So Krishna gives a way in which you can engage in that way in human form life, or one does want palatable food, but they also want Krishna, which most people do, including myself, then yeah, why not just, or you can just engage in Krishna's service, and he's given facility for that through wonderful prasada leads or play video games or whatever it is. I heard in one lecture too, somebody was asking or admitting publicly in this lecture to Devan Swami about that he had this desire to play video games, and Devan Swami said, well, you know, why? Like if that time would be better spent doing something like exercising, you know, taking care of your body if you want to do something. Um, and, and then, you know, it kind of went on. And then he was saying, okay, well, why don't do you know how to create the games? And the person said, yeah. He said, okay, why don't you make a game about Krishna? So even that, there's all different ways. Even the example of the dolphins, you know, one has a desire to mate, then Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you know, that sex life according to religious principles, one can see Krishna in that way. So Krishna is given the full scope for everything. And that's as long as we have side by side a desire to know Krishna and serve him and love him as well. So, yeah, we have to be careful about our aspirations because, like I said, the body we want is the body we'll get. And we have to be careful of protecting our Bhakti Lata Bij. Like I was just reading the second canto, and there's this purport where Prabhupada, I think he has 8 bullet points and or a numbered list, and he's explaining about how one takes care of the Bhakti Lata Bij and like all these details about the steps, basically how Bhakti Lata Bij will grow, that I forgot existed until I read it again, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so nectar. So I was making that point because we have to be careful that these other desires don't outgrow or strangle our bhakti creeper. Because, for example, if we're not attentive in japa, then whatever we are thinking about, that it's like the power of the holy name goes into that other desire, and then that other desire will increase. Whereas what we really want to increase is focusing on Krishna, and then our bhakti lata bij is getting watered instead of that potency watering the weeds. So yeah, association is very critical, and not only the devotees that we associate, but also, I mean, of course, Srila Prabhupada is the top, one of the topmost devotees. So reading Srila Prabhupada's books is also very, very critical, because I had this realization the other day reading with a devotee. I just had to put the book down because I was like, this is so crazy. Like Prabhupada is just completely changing our aspirations. It was so like I felt it so viscerally that I'm like, yeah, we just, we scroll, we talk to people, we see billboards, we see ads, we like, and it just feels like it just feels very passive, like a very passive experience. But actually, all those things are completely shaping our aspirations. Even if I look out my window right now and there's a park across from me, and if I see these 2 people, they're walking with their dog, oh, they look happy. That changes actually the heart and the aspirations, even so subtly. I'm not saying we should just stay locked up in a box, um, but everything, my point is that everything is just changing. The material world is not an inactive place. Maya is not just sitting around, being inert. She's actively trying to make us think, oh, see, they're happy. They don't have Krishna, but they're happy. And, they look like they're having a good life and peaceful. And yeah, who really cares if, I don't know what my next body's going to be. But if we read Srila Prabhupada's books daily, then it just completely changes our aspirations. Like, like he said, he is literally washing our brains in the good sense that, yeah, we're going to be infected one way or another. So whenever we read Prabhupada's books, every sentence practically is changing our aspirations. Yeah, what should I aspire for? That's perhaps, and something our can, you know, actually material life is just relief, or the happiness in material life is just some relief from suffering. And, if we have not so much of an open mind or not so humble, then we might get put off by that. But if we really think and reflect and we've been sufficiently burnt out, then we're like, whew, yeah, I feel that. So we can already realize some of the things in Prabhupada's books. And then the more you practice, and by dint of devotional service, then you just get to realize more and more and more. And that's an experience, a beautiful experience that I'm praying to be able to have my whole life, is that I can read Srila Prabhupada's books again and again and again and just get newer and newer realization. But for that, it also requires work on my part, not only reading, but also, working on cleaning the heart and just doing progressive devotional service. So, yeah. And then side by side with that, like I said, goes just our everyday devotee association, that we should look at our association closely to determine our aspirations. Because just like in the material world, all association where our aspirations end up. It's a subtle and sometimes not so subtle process. So yeah, we have to decide whose advice are we going to take on how to be happy. Is it going to be Srila Prabhupada? And then also the assembled Vaishnavas that, we can see that what they're saying is also in line with what Srila Prabhupada is saying, which is in line with what Krishna is saying. Or are we just going to leave ourselves open to, oh, okay, I'm open to whatever anybody says is going to make me happy. So yeah, I had just another like modern contemporary example is that there's one artist that I used to really like one musician that I used to really like, and he's had like, one of the top person that's had their songs played on Spotify. He's won multiple Grammys. Um, and his latest album, and he made like a movie to go along with it, is all about his desire to basically commit suicide. Well, not basically, his desire to commit suicide, and just like is like wanting to say like, hurry up, death, like I want to die. And so I was just thinking, like he made this movie with all these Academy Award winners, this and that, all about this desire of like, fame, and then just being like completely miserable and like having a persona on stage and what is real and what is not real. So all of that, I mean, we give a lot of examples about this, like, there's Robin Williams and so many people that committed suicide, even though they seem to have it all. But I was just thinking, here's a huge artist has not committed suicide, but they're basically putting all this information out there in the form of an album and a movie that so many people will hear, and they're obviously not happy. And then they're also putting this out there, and it will change other people's aspirations as well. That he's kind of like, I guess, glorifying it or glamorizing it. So now back to Srila Prabhupada and what is real happiness. So Srila Prabhupada says in this lecture in Boston in 1969, he said he's speaking about essentially what's the best service to humanity and how to give them satisfaction instead of just temporary happiness. So he says that is the best gift. That is the best service. When a man will feel that I have no more want, I am, fully satisfied. That is the best service. What is this service? Nonsense service. Suppose I'm hungry. You give me some food. Does it mean that I shall not be very hungry? That I shall not be hungry again? That food is already given also in this Krishna consciousness movement. That is a not very difficult job. That is being given also. But we are giving some food which will make him satisfied for good. No more hunger. That is the best service. Just try to understand what sort of service is this Krishna consciousness. No more hunger, no more demand. Svamin kritartosmi. Oh, I am fully satisfied. But I'm not yache. I have no more demand. Finish. And if you go materially, satisfy your hunger, this, that, that. Oh, it is simply illusion. It will never be finished. Just like you are advanced in material prosperity, you're more advanced in material prosperity than other countries. Does it mean that you're satisfied? Why are there hippies? Why are there so many frustrated youngsters? The richest country in the world. That this richness of material world, the rascals, they are following that. If we become like America and some industrial nation, we shall become happy. That is rascaldom. Actual happiness is how you learn to love God. Then you get happy. That can be achieved without any material advancement. Anywhere you can have, without any expenditure, without any effort, without any education, without any knowledge. Simply chant Hare Krishna and you develop that love. This is the highest service to human society. Just try to understand. Everyone will say, oh, now I'm now satisfied, fully satisfied. I don't want. No more stealing, no more pickpocketing, no more cheating, because I have no want. Why shall I cheat? Why shall I cheat? Everything will be complete, fully satisfied. Yayatma supersediti. Supersediti, this very word, Sanskrit word, is there. You have to make yourself fully satisfied. Then there will be no more want. You see? So I really like that. And it just makes so much sense about like how Prabhupada would say that, if they let him or let the devotees like have more of an influence on society, would preach to the government officials that, there won't be all these crimes like the drug use, stealing. But Prabhupada's explaining it here that that's the import or the explanation behind that is that, yeah, they'll be satisfied. So there'll be no need to steal, no need to cheat because they don't have any want. And we can feel that, as devotees, that whenever we're very like fixed in bhakti, that we're actually so satisfied. Like just even for me, going back to the point of reading, that I noticed whenever I took my reading from like a lesser amount and then tried to increase it some, to that degree that I increased and actually like focused and, put my heart into it, I felt so much more satisfied. I'm like, actually, I was thinking I needed all these things, but by me doing that, it's actually what helps, at least personally for me, to become very much more steady in the circumstances I'm in. And it makes you just very, very tolerant, let alone, I mean, also happy, but very tolerant and much more steady. So we have to figure out, for each one of us as a devotee, what is it, how much do we need, what dosage, basically what dosage of the medicine do we need every day in order for us to feel peaceful, steady, tolerant, and also just, yeah, happy, satisfied. And then also one can, of course, take the guidance of mentors and the spiritual master as well to help out. And then in the same lecture, Prabhupada went on to explain this story about Alexander the Great and the cynic, which I looked up cynic because I was like, I don't know if cynic means the same thing as we have the contemporary definition. And a cynic was in, I think, ancient Rome at the same time of Alexander the Great. Some people that like shunned basically worldly comforts or like basically sense gratification. So Alexander the Great, he went up to one of these cynics. He could see that they were, I guess, meditating in a way, and he said, "Oh, I really like to do something for you. What can I do?" And Alexander the Great is the great, so he's got so much money, so much opulence. He could probably do like give them whatever they wanted. And the cynic said, he's like, "Could you just please step out of the way? You're blocking the sun." And so Prabhupada used that example to say that, this person was, I mean, in their own way for that time, self-satisfied. So they didn't want anything from Alexander the Great. They just wanted him to step out of the way of the sun. So I thought that was a very nice example. And then I found this other really amazing purport in part of the purport in Srimad Bhagavatam 4:22-14. And Prabhupada said, Gita 262, it is also said, Sangat Sanjayate Kama. Simply by association, we create artificial material necessities. Jayato Vishayam Pumsa Sangas Teshu Bhajayate. When we forget our real constitutional position and wish to enjoy the material resources, our material desires manifest, and we associate with varieties of material enjoyment. As soon as the concoctions of material enjoyment are there, because of our association, we create a sort of lust or eagerness to enjoy them. And when that false enjoyment occurs, and by the manifestation of anger, the illusion becomes stronger. When we are illusioned in this way, forgetfulness of our relationship with Krishna follows, and by thus losing Krishna consciousness, our real intelligence is defeated. In this way, we become entangled in the material world. And I love this because it was all about the point that I've been speaking about, which is association. And Prabhupada is just very clearly saying, like on a very real, everyday, we can feel it level, that, okay, we forget our real constitutional position. We've done that for so many lifetimes, and we wish to enjoy the material resources. That also we've done for so many lifetimes, and we can palpably feel it in at least my day-to-day life, but maybe some others can relate. that so we desire to enjoy material resources, whatever it is, separately from Krishna, and then our material desires manifest, and we associate with varieties of material enjoyment. So Prabhupada then says, as soon as the concoctions of material enjoyment are there, so basically, as soon as the mind is contemplating about that, and it creates some kind of, there's some exposure. Basically, it's like a disease. The desire for material enjoyment is a disease. So as soon as we've been exposed to the virus, and then because of our association with that virus, it's not like you just were walking by somebody and they happen, you were breathing and they were breathing. But now you're like in the closed room with them. So you've made that choice that I'm like, oh no, I'm going to contemplate this. This is going to be in my mind and I'm going to think about it. So instead of thinking about Krishna. So we create for ourselves, we basically catalyze the disease, or we just make it expand, because we're like, I'm going to stay trapped now with this disease in a closed environment, which is the mind. And then that false enjoyment, we either we act on it basically, or even if it's in the mind, like for example, probably everybody's had this experience in high school of if you have this desire in the mind, you like somebody, you have a crush on somebody, and then you make up this whole like fantasy, and this, it's called limerence actually. You make up this whole fantasy in your head of just like a romance, and then you didn't even act on it other than contemplating it in your mind, and then you see them with someone else, and then you're, oh no, or they don't ask you to the prom or whatever, and then even if you didn't act on it, still just by that contemplation, you're setting yourself up. Like Prahlad Maharaj says, the misery begins in the plan making stage. So even you didn't act on it, but just by the contemplation, it will still bring you misery, because you're not the ultimate controller or the enjoyer, but in this case, you're not the ultimate controller. So you can't, bend somebody exactly to your will. Of course, people try through manipulation or subtle manipulative tactics, or like Amarita Swami says, to even raising one eyebrow, or more gross forms like abuse or getting money, and then people do whatever I want, like that. But the point is that even in the plan making stage, or the are associating with the lust, or are associating with that idea, we set ourselves up for misery actually. And then um and then and then the okay, so yeah, and then whenever that false enjoyment does not actually make us happy, we create another illusion known as anger. So going back to the example of high school, and having a crush, they go to the prom with someone else, then of course there's so much anger, just like, oh, devastated. And then by the manifestation of anger, the illusion becomes even stronger. When we're illusioned in this way, forgetfulness of our relationship with Krishna follows. So we can see that all of this so far, even in the example that I gave, all of this has happened just in the mind. There has not even been any like action taken place yet. All of this has happened in the mind. And all of it is just one big loop of like basically an increasing like a mushroom cloud of distraction from Krishna that could have been avoided if, if that person knew about Krishna consciousness, then, just contemplating on Krishna instead of the objects of the senses. But yeah, things just boil and expand and mushroom cloud out of control whenever we contemplate the objects of the senses. Or you're meditating on the last samosa, as devotees give this example in class so many times, and then somebody else takes it. And then it's like, not only were you distracted from Krishna by just thinking about that samosa, at least it's hopefully prasadam, but also then the anger, and then it's just like, and then we can see why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, one falls down into the material sphere. So then the last line, Prabhupada says, when we are illusioned in this way, forgetfulness of our relationship with Krishna follows, and by thus losing Krishna consciousness, our real intelligence is defeated. In this way, we become entangled in this material world. So this purport really hit for me, that I was like, oh, I see. get it, that at least to some degree, that this is how we become entangled in the material world, because not only it's like the two are inextricably linked, that the anger follows the material desire. So not only, whenever we hear Prabhupada or devotees speak about, it's like the material desires, they distract us from Krishna and they keep us going in the material world. That's like just the front end of it. If you want to know the full scope of why it's keeping us entangled in the material world, it's because this whole series of events happens after it. It's like somebody saying, oh, you have to like protect yourself. Like I was giving the example of, catching a cold or a disease, that you're just, one could say that, oh, don't associate with that person because they're, they have this sickness and you don't want to get those germs. But if you really dig into it and figure out what's going to happen if you associate and if you keep associating, and then you're going to get sick and then it's going to get worse and then it's going to take you a really long time to recover, and then maybe you have long COVID. It's like there's a whole back end to that one little piece of advice, that don't associate with this person, don't associate with material desires. And that's why, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that the first symptom of a devotee is, what is it? Asat Sango Tyaga? Is that what it is? Asat Sango something. Yeah, I'm not great at learning verses. That's why from that Bhagavad Gita, whatever, 327, the only thing I remembered was a wide gulf of difference because of the golfing. But anyway, that the first symptom of a Vaishnav is that, yeah, you can judge by their association that they're not associating with worldly minded persons. So anyway, we have 13 minutes left. So hopefully that wasn't too actually cynical, but there was some value in it. Does anybody have some reflections, hopefully, or comments, corrections?
Hare Krishna. I put my comments in the chat. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but
I saw it. Thank you. I feel so touched.
whenever you give class, it's always so very, very refreshing because you bring a lightness to and depth to Srila Prabhupada's teachings. And this is the first time I'd heard the phrase progressive devotional service. I think that's wonderful. So may Krishna continue to bless you on that journey, sweetheart.
Thank you. I definitely need your blessings. And yeah, I can really only say that I've just tried to hear from my spiritual master, and Srila Prabhupada too, but he definitely, I think, gives everybody some like very captivating and simultaneously funny and lighthearted, but also very like grave and deep lectures. So I'm just trying to learn from him. Okay, there's like different there's different comments in the chat, and also I think Dasya had his hand up, but he also asked how to progress from karma yoga. Ooh, I have heard about this one. It might take me a minute to just gather my thoughts, but I mean, from my understanding is that one thing is it can happen naturally, just that, yeah, we keep going and then we get Krishna, if we're sincere, Krishna will definitely help. And if that's our desire, if we desire, I want to progress from karma yoga to bhakti, Krishna always helps. Also, the spiritual master is there. And I mean, yeah, I'm sure probably even in your own life that you've done, maybe your spiritual master has suggested things or asked things and you're like, I don't know if I really want to do that, but but because, I'm dedicated to him, then I will do that. And yeah, there's so many things, like not every, especially if you're living in the temple. I mean, some people it might be like every single service that they're given is just according to what they want to do for Krishna. But likely not, especially if it is a smaller team. That's one of like the really nice, I think, blessings of I always like kind of having like a small team of devotees. I mean, that's also how I quote unquote grew up in bhakti, but it also gives you the experience of being able to just do what needs to be done, to whatever degree you're able to like do that and process it until yeah, you're just like, okay, I also really need to do like what I want to do, but for Krishna. So I don't know if that really answers it. Maybe somebody else can, and I'd also like to invite Tarika Prabhu. Maybe he has a few thoughts on that question, or anybody really. And then I'll get to James's question. So if we can leave a bit of time for James as well. But Tarika Prabhu, do you have anything your realization or what you've heard from Srila Prabhupada on that?
From Karma Yoga to progress from Karma Yoga to Bhakti. Well, Karma Yoga, properly executed, is already Bhakti, and it's just a question of increasing one's purity and faith and attachment for Krishna. But in the course of practicing Karma Yoga, presumably, you will also have the opportunity to associate with devotees and to hear the message of Krishna consciousness from Shastra. In our case, we have the benefit of Srila Prabhupada's purports, and of course, we're also going to be chanting Hare Krishna, and by all these means, we will assuredly progress. There is a progression of stages of faith, and it comes automatically, gradually. And each of those stages of faith corresponds with a particular stage of the development of bhakti. Krishna gives detailed instructions in Bhagavad Gita of how to perform even one's prescribed duties as karma yoga by offering the results of every activity to Krishna, or at least performing one's duty with detachment, without any sense of proprietorship. And so that manifests automatically if you are offering the results of your actions. But that offering of results of actions is also bhakti. And so it's just a question of maturation. The foundations of bhakti are there, and then it's just gradually, it manifests more and more as one's faith and attachment increase. And that is catalyzed by the association of devotees and the constant watering process of hearing and chanting the holy names. And by reading, we're also getting, as you pointed out, we're getting the association of Srila Prabhupada, and Uttama Adhikari. So all these are very powerful means of progressing in Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada set up for us a very ideal system. I'll say a little story. There was an incident in, I believe it was Montreal, and this was in the late 60s. around 1968 or so. One of my godbrothers, Nanda Kishore, who recently passed away. He was one of the founding actors and playwriters of the Vaikuntha Players. Used to lead wonderful kirtan, is an excellent cook and wonderful devotee. So he was in Montreal, and one day he and some other devotees were outside Srila Prabhupada's room, and they heard from within the room, they heard Srila Prabhupada laughing very loudly, big, deep guffaw, belly laughs. I mean, really just really laughing. So he laughed and laughed and laughed, and through the laughter, he forced out some words. Said through his laughter, "They cannot escape." Srila Prabhupada was marveling at the fact that the conditioned souls, by this process of Krishna consciousness, they become caught up in so many different ways, and they cannot escape. It's just a matter of time. They're going to be swept up, purified, and reinstated, excuse me, in their original Krishna consciousness. They cannot escape. So, and intentionally, Srila Prabhupada engineered the Krishna consciousness movement in such a way that that we cannot easily evade Krishna. Krishna will be everywhere in our lives. We will be bombarded by Krishna and opportunities to be purified and to advance in our Krishna consciousness. The medicine will constantly be injected, and it will take effect. Depends upon the extent to which we apply ourselves, but the effect will assuredly be there, and it's just a matter of time. So it's not as though we have to make some sort of separate endeavor to progress from one stage to the next, or if we think that we're practicing karma yoga, that I have to now make some kind of a transition or some such thing, but that Srila Prabhupada created a system of fail-safes for us that he covered many, many bases. For example, he taught us to apply tilak to the 12 parts of our body. And the process of applying tilak is itself purifying and fosters remembrance of Krishna and elevates us in Krishna consciousness. Simultaneously, it is a kavacha which protects us. Gopi Chandan Tilak is also purifying, and if you happen to leave your body and you are in contact with Gopi Chandan, you're guaranteed to go back home just by contact with Gopi Chandan. It's that powerful. So there's many different angles. We're being bombarded by Krishna consciousness from many different angles, and we have all these different assurances. So we just have to follow the process that Srila Prabhupada gave us. Simple. We follow 4 regulative principles. We chant a minimum of 16 rounds a day. And as far as possible, we engage ourselves in devotional service, something productive, something somehow or other to further the mission of Krishna consciousness, to share Krishna consciousness with others, to make that opportunity available to others. We set an example. We associate with devotees, and we honor the Lord's prasad and see the Lord's Archa Vigraha, and so on and so on. There's so many different activities, but all we have to do is just persist, just stick with the process. And what is that verse? We'll become Krishna conscious. It will become our rightful claim. We just have to persist. We just have to hold on, and we have to be patient. It can't necessarily be had immediately, but it's sure to come in time. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of a young woman who's newly married. She wants to have a child. She can't have a child immediately. It takes a little time. So you just have to be patient. It's sure and certain that the child will be there in time, but just have to be patient. And Krishna consciousness is also like that. And it will grow and dawn in our heart in time, and it's just a matter of time. We just have to persist. Anyway, that's my take on it. Hare Krishna. Oh, and I want to thank you for a wonderful class. Always wonderful classes. You always cover a lot of territory. You got many angles on, and it's it's fascinating to see all the different ways that you understand and appreciate a single verse. But you cover a lot of territory, and all of it is wonderful to contemplate. I appreciate your energy and enthusiasm. Um, um, I don't know, anytime I see that you're going to give a class, it always puts a smile on my face. I immediately anticipate something wonderful. So I thank you very much for your excellent and well-prepared classes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. I feel the same way as I said on the Jumpa Bhakti, that I'm like, well, I'm just trying to repeat what I hear from my spiritual master, also Srila Prabhupada. But my goal is to take in some as Vaishnav out of my nose and my ears, my mouth. So thanks for your validation and affirmation of that. Does anybody else have anything else? I have about 5 more minutes, but yeah, I wanted to leave it open in case anybody has a question or comment. Okay, thank you again, dear devotees, for the opportunity to hear and speak about Krishna. And I hope you all have a fantastic Tuesday in Krishna's service. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all Granta Srimad Bhagavatam ki